Hello and welcome back to Joe English, the channel that helps Italians to learn and communicate in English well. Today is the 5th episode of Only English, and today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting topic. I'm going to be talking about British stereotypes. Okay, so I've got 5 stereotypes that I'm going to talk about. And I want you to then answer some questions at the end. Also, in the comments, write, do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Or are there any other stereotypes that I have not mentioned? Okay, let's go. So, the first stereotype is, you English are always drinking tea. That's not true. Okay, yes, we do drink a lot of tea in England, exactly like you drink coffee in Italy. However, there is one stereotype that isn't true. Lots of people think that in England we have cups of tea at 5 o'clock.
Meanwhile, we have to watch that dreadful woman parade around the village as if she owned it.
No, it's not true. Not everybody in Britain stops exactly what they're doing to sit down to have a cup of tea. It doesn't work like that. Years ago, with the really noble families and the posh families, they would have an afternoon tea break where they would drink tea at 5 o'clock, but not anymore. Usually in England, people drink mugs of tea, not cups of tea, and they drink them whenever they want, all through the day. But also, another thing is that coffee is becoming very, very popular. Not Italian coffee so much, you know, the espresso, not those, but big mugs of coffee again. That's one thing. For example, my father has never understood about Italy. He loves Italy. But he can't understand why people meet in a bar, have a coffee, finished, goodbye, see you later. To him, it just doesn't make sense. In England, we have a big mug or cup of coffee that lasts a lot longer. And I know that you Italians don't like it.
Che schifo!
I'm sorry, it's just what we do. Okay, so stereotype number 2. Your food in England is disgusting. Yes and no. I do agree that any food compared with Italian food often isn't as good. I understand that. Italian food is fantastic. I am not going to argue that. However, food in Britain, I think 30, 40 years ago, was very bad in the 1980s, the early 1990s. The quality of the food and the inventiveness of the food wasn't very good. But one thing that you need to remember is that Italy, each region, each town has a very strong cultural link to the food and lots of traditions. In England, we don't have that as much. We've lost some of our traditional foods and techniques, mainly because people aren't passing on knowledge from grandmother to granddaughter to daughter, etc., or grandfather to son, etc. That passage has been lost slightly, whereas in Italy it hasn't been. Also, in England, we've had lots and lots of immigrants from India, Pakistan, China, etc., who have brought over their food cultures and that we in England have embraced. For example, I think the most popular food in England now is Indian food, believe it or not, and I love it. So I would agree that years ago the food was not good, but now I don't think it's true. The quality of food in England now is fantastic. The quality of our seafood, our fish is excellent. one of the best in the world. And the same with meat as well. After we had problems with the mad cow disease, then we made sure that all our standards were very, very high. So even the quality of meat is fantastic. Obviously, we have our own vegetables, but they're very different to Italian vegetables because we don't have the sun like you do. So you can grow lovely fruit and vegetables like oranges, watermelon. In England is just a dream. We can't do it. So although the food, I would say, is different, it is heavier, I think, but because Britain is more north, it's colder. So I just think it's a different culture when it comes to food. But now I would say that the quality is pretty good. In fact, the best restaurant in the world for a few years was a pub in England called the Fat Duck. So I think that proves that there is quality now. So one thing that you must do, if you go to England, please don't eat in McDonald's. Go to a good pub. Find a nice pub and they will serve very good food, or a nice restaurant. But Britain is not hamburgers and chips. That is not what England is about. We have some really lovely, lovely food and you must try it. Okay? So, stereotype number 3. You English are ignorant. You can't speak anybody else's language. Okay, this is an interesting point. To be honest, I would have to agree with it. I understand that in Britain we don't have the necessity to learn a language because English is the world language. However, I don't think a language should be learned purely for necessity. I think for personal culture as well it is important. And that is why I think it is a problem in England. I would love to see more people speaking another language in Britain, but unfortunately it just doesn't happen. But like I said, that's down to necessity, but also I do agree, ignorance as well. Stereotype number 4. You English, you're always at the pub drinking beer and getting drunk. Us, English, drinking beer? That's not true. Okay, this stereotype I agree 50% with. And I think it needs to be separated by the age of the people. For example, I do believe there is a big problem with young people in Britain drinking too much. And that's the problem. Often younger people here, and I'm talking 16, 17, 18-year-olds, they will go out with their friends for a pizza, maybe have a beer to share, but no more. In England, we don't have that culture of going out to have something to eat. It's all about drinking. And then young people can't control themselves and they drink too much. And again, it all comes down to culture. In Italy, there is always wine on the table from an early age. Now, children aren't drinking the wine, but it's there. Alcohol is there. And it's not seen as a problem. In Britain, there are very, very strict rules. You do not drink until you are 16, 18. And then young people go crazy and drink too much. Whereas in Italy, I think, well, it's normal. What's the point? What's the problem? There's nothing new. And I think that's fantastic. One of the reasons, in fact, that my wife and I decided to move to Italy when she was pregnant was because we wanted to bring our children up in this kind of environment, because there are problems with young people when they drink. Saying that, the other side of the coin is when alcohol is drunk and pubs are used responsibly, I think it's a fantastic culture. And something that I really miss because Italy doesn't have it. For example, in England, when you go to the pub as a responsible adult, it's a meeting place to see your friends. Drinking alcohol is not the main objective. Obviously people drink, but they don't drink beer after beer after beer. They may go meet with their friends for a couple of hours, have a couple of beers and then go home. And that's it. And that's how the pub culture should be seen in Britain. But unfortunately, the young people are ruining the reputation. Stereotype number 5. In England, it always rains. The weather is awful. Okay, yes, the weather in Britain is not good. I do agree with that. But I do also think that in England, people expect it. So there are lots of things to do. For example, here in southern Italy, when it rains, there's not much to do. Whereas in England, life carries on as normal. So that's a positive point at least. But also, I wanted to do a bit of research to see if the weather in England was that much worse than in Italy. So I've got statistics comparing London and Milan, and they're pretty interesting statistics. Okay, so I've had to write this down, okay, because there's lots of numbers. So this is all taken from the World Meteorological Organization, so actual statistics. Basically, in Milan, each year, there is 920 millimetres of rain in a year. Whereas in London, 558. So in London, it's not as rainy. Or is it? Because then I looked at the number of rainy days. And in Milan, in the whole year, on average, there are only 83 days of rain. Whereas in London, there's 110. So basically, that's 30 extra days. So a whole month of days where it rains in London. So I think that's why it gives the impression that it rains more in London. And also in Milan, only 83 days, but more rain, means the rain is much heavier when it does fall. Then I looked at average temperature. So the average temperature in Milan throughout the year is 17.7 degrees, whereas in London it's 15.3. So not a big margin. But the real difference is in the summer. In the summer it's a lot hotter in Milan. So in the winter and autumn and spring, the average temperature is actually warmer in London. And then the last one I looked at was hours of sunshine. And in Milan, it's 1,900 hours per year. And in London, it's 1,600. So again, more hours of sunshine in Milan. So there we are. I do think that the stereotype is bad weather in England, but I don't think it's as bad as people think. So, I hope you found this interesting about British stereotypes. Again, let me know in the comments if you have anything to add, if you agree or disagree with me, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.